In a viral TikTok video, a 22-year-old woman demanded that a doctor sterilize her, and the doctor refused, saying, "Why don't you get an IUD instead? Because maybe one day you'll meet Mr. Right and you will want to have kids." This young woman's video has been viewed 1.9 million times and has received thousands of comments. And there are many deep moral questions in a story like this. Should a doctor disable or remove perfectly functioning organs of an individual simply because they want it done? This young woman says she doesn't want to have kids. Why do you need to get sterilized if you don't want to have kids? You can get an IUD. So what's the issue here? Well, there are questions. Some people do get a vasectomy or their tubes tied, and typically we don't take big issue with it. I suppose the issue arises when the person is young. We've had many people on Timcast IRL, many women. We've been told by a couple of women that they truly believed they would never want to have children. And then they got a little older and said, yeah, I do want to have kids. But I also know some people who have gotten sterilization surgeries, whatever you want to call it, and they're completely happy. So what's the real issue here? If a person wants to live the way they want to live, then so be it, right? You know, the one thing I question about conservatives, and I've had many conversations with the conservatives about this. If people want to sterilize themselves, either with, transgender surgeries or something like that, and I'm not saying that to be a negative. I'm saying quite literally, if someone wants to remove their reproductive organs, why do you care? I mean, in all seriousness, like it's a legitimate question. Why do you care? Instill your values in your children. Your kids will have kids. And if some people just say, I want these things removed and I will not reproduce, then in one generation, that genetic line ceases to exist within the gene pool. This is a reality. It's a reality of nature. If you take issue with this woman and she doesn't want kids, okay, give it a couple decades and she's gone. Her genetic line is gone. It's just gone. Now, I know conservatives say to me, it's because all human life is valuable and these people are being manipulated and all that stuff. And it's just like, I don't know how to answer this question. I come from a libertarian perspective on this woman is 22 years old. She's a legal adult. She can do what she wants. She might regret it, but you know what? She's a legal adult. Why would the state or a doctor or anybody be like, I can make decisions for you? Now, I will say this. As for this doctor, you can't force a doctor to do anything. So this woman who's like outraged that her gynecologist is refusing to sterilize her. So what? You can't force someone to do work. Too bad. There's a couple big stories here. We have this story from KatieCouric.com. Oh, Katie. Some 40% of young people say they're reluctant to have kids, according to one poll. Here's my immediate response before I read these stories. If you're a conservative, liberal, moderate, whatever, and you're concerned about a lack of population replacement, have more kids. I mean, that's it. If you're looking to these people who are like, climate change is really bad, or people who are like, I just don't want to have kids sterilize me, or people who are like, I would like these organs removed, then it is incumbent upon you to just have the 2 kids they should have had, right? If you want the United States to expand and you think the population needs to stay at replacement levels or grow, you need to take the responsibility and have those kids. Now, I know many people are probably saying, Tim, you don't have any kids. Yes, I know. I'm actually sitting here from a libertarian perspective being like, if somebody wants to live a certain way, I don't know what to tell you, man. Matt Walsh said that no doctor should perform transgender surgeries on people regardless of their age. Now, I get that. It's a conservative idea. Me, I'm not a conservative. It's really fascinating, too. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I was talking with Charlie Kirk and Will Chamberlain, and we had a really interesting moment when I said, if a community says we don't want police, the police shouldn't show up. And they said, no. That's a libertarian idea. We are conservatives. And I went, oh, no, I get it. The conservatives are like, there is a standard by which our society functions that should apply to all. Okay, that I get. As a libertarian, little L, centrist libertarian, I guess, center left slightly. My attitude is kind of like, if this woman says she wants something, then leave me out of it. I don't care if she doesn't have kids. If you question her intent, if you question her mental capacity, if you question how she would even raise kids, then why wouldn't you just be like, I guess it's a good thing? She's making the choice for herself. She's not going to have kids that perpetuate ideas you don't like. So the only real issue, I guess, then is what's happening in public schools with your kids. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's the story from the Daily Mail. Woman 22 who says she never wants kids reveals her gynecologist refused to sterilize her because she might meet Mr. Right and change her mind. Advised her to get an IUD instead. I mean, that's the responsible thing to do. But whatever. Here's the story. Olivia, a student from Massachusetts, went viral last week after she recreated her conversation with her gynecologist about tubal ligation, a surgical procedure for female sterilization. Hi, Miss Gynecologist. My name is Olivia. I never want children. I have had this made up in my mind since I was old enough to think of the concept. Can I please have my tubes tied? She said at the start of the TikTok video. You can see all these. They picked a really funny clip of her like big-eyed, I guess, to make her look nuts or something. No, she responded. It's permanent. Yeah, I know, Olivia replied. That's why I asked. I'd like that option. Well, no. You might meet Mr. Right and change your mind. Olivia once again insisted that she doesn't want children, saying, it's not my plan. It's not in my 5-year plan. It's not in my 10-year plan, my 50-year plan. I don't want that. Yeah, but you might change your mind and it's permanent. So here's a brochure for an IUD. The gynecologist was right. Period. Because people change their mind. Now, this woman probably isn't adequately representing what the doctor actually said. Were I the doctor, I would say, young woman, I certainly understand that is how you feel right now. I can respect that you may feel that way in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. In fact, it is probable you never have kids. But I will tell you this. I will not take a 1% chance, nay, a 0.1% chance that you come back to my office in 10 years crying, saying, what did you do to me? I was too young and you ruined my life. It's permanent. I will not take a permanent action against you because you might think you won't change your mind, but then one day someone shows up at my office screaming about how it's my fault. Sorry, not going to happen. Find somebody else to do it. You can't force them. Now, she could just get an IUD. Problem solved, right? Olivia then held up a brochure for an IUD, intrauterine device, that her doctor allegedly gave her during the appointment. It has the same efficacy rate. We put it in your universe and you bleed and cramp for 3 months. No, thank you, Olivia said after making that face. In the caption, she wrote, got the death sentence today. Tubal ligation. It said litigation up there. I'm pretty sure it's ligation. Or getting your tubes tied involves the fallopian tubes being either cut, tied, clamped, banded, or sealed off an electric current to permanently prevent pregnancy. Here, people need to understand not wanting kids. No, you don't understand. It's really amazing. You know, we got this thing in called the 10 Commandments. And when I say we, I mean humanity. Mostly it is adhered to by Christians. I'm not saying that I adhere to it or anyone else does. But in it, they say, honor thy father and thy mother. You know, thinking about that, it's very important. If you're 22 and you're talking to an older person and they say X, Y, and Z, and you go, no, I'm smarter than you and you don't know how I feel. Bro, they were kids too at one point. They understand very likely how you feel because times change. It's amazing. I remember when I was younger, my mom was like, take care of your credit because one day you'll want to buy a house. And I was like, why would I want to buy a house? That's stupid. And that's dumb. I don't care. I never want to buy a house. Now I have a house. Yeah, it's because when you're young, you're dumb. You know, not every young person is dumb. In fact, most young people, actually fairly insightful in my opinion. Young people see the world in a new way. They are raised into a world that's different from the older generation. But when it comes to as we age and the things we feel, there certainly is value in wisdom that comes with that age. To put it simply, here's the way I feel. Young people are often the upstarts that shake up the system and change things. Not always for the better, but often. When I was younger, I had a lot of older people who were like, you're wrong and I don't believe you. And they wouldn't listen to me. But it turns out I was right. 10 years ago, I pitched exactly what I'm doing now to several companies. And they went, meh, I don't know. That makes no sense. Okay, well, you were wrong. I was right. Old people, you dumb. But I also know that when I was younger, the way I felt about things, like, oh, I never want to buy a house. And then I did. And then I was like, oh, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's also other things that you just don't understand until you experience it. For one, being wealthy. A lot of people are like, I don't understand why rich people buy all of these things. And it's like, okay, well, I can tell you, you have no choice. It's like dominoes falling over, as I explained. You make a bunch of money, it sits in a bank account, and inflation destroys it. So you're like, what do I do? Well, you end up buying stuff. So me personally, I've bought some stuff, silver, gold, cryptocurrencies, some cars sitting in the garage, because it's a better place to store value. You can sell it later and the value increases, whereas US currency decreases. So why do rich people buy big mansions? I remember saying 10 years ago, I was like, man, if I was ever that rich, I would never buy a $20 million mansion. And now I watch this stuff and I'm like, oh, no, I get it. They run a company. They make a bunch of money and they say, I can't just sit on US dollars because of inflation, especially nowadays. They don't buy the house because they want to be rich and live in a big house. They buy it because they need an investment and they need to put the value somewhere else. So I totally get it. Not completely. Some people are just greedy. Some people really do want to sterilize themselves and they mean it. Olivia's video has been viewed more than 1.9 million times and has received thousands of comments, many of which were from people who were outraged on her behalf. How do you just leave after this? I can't imagine a doctor denying my request just because they said so. It hurts my brain. Please keep pushing it. Oh, millennials and Gen Z, what is wrong with this generation? You can't force someone to do something. People need to understand not wanting kids, someone else insisted. While another noted, Mr. Right is someone who also doesn't want kids. How hard is that to understand? How hard is it for you to understand that you can't force a doctor to do a thing? You go to the doctor and say, doctor, I want you to do X. He goes, no. And you go, how dare you? This is the entitlement that you think you can go and just force someone to work for you. Amazing. You're too young to know what you want. The doctor is literally smarter than you at this. You should listen. Yes, they are. You are wrong, period. And I'll tell you why. These doctors probably get this all the time. After 20 years, the doctor goes, I can't tell you how many young women or men came to me and said they wanted an irreversible procedure, and then 5 years later said, thank you for not doing it. I've talked with women who were pregnant, and people were telling them to get abortions. And invariably, they say, I'm glad I didn't do it. Yeah, they had the kid. They love their kid. And they are glad they didn't abort their kid. It's just that simple. When you have a child, I mean, I'm sure there exists someone who's like, I should have aborted this kid. I can't stand my child. Sure. I've not met any. I mean, I've heard stories, but the people I've met, I've never met someone with children who was like, I wish I got rid of them. Nope. They're all fairly happy that they have these kids. And it's fascinating that there are young people who think they're just smarter and better, and there's no humility. It's just pure hubris. This is the participation trophy generation. Certainly no one else could ever be right. Now, I talk about being an arrogant youth quite a bit, but it's not entirely fair. You know, I tell these stories about religion. Let me tell you this one if you guys haven't heard it. I'll try and make it quick. I grew up Catholic for a few years. Mostly did not understand anything about it, to be completely honest. The teachers did a really bad job of explaining any of it. But I remember going to church and I remember the ideas they gave. And I was like, this makes no sense to me. And they didn't know how to convey the sense in any way. They did not tie religion to civics, which they should have, to explain the moral values of our government or anything like that. Just totally not a part of it. I once watched a cartoon of Adam riding a brontosaurus. Yeah, just very inadequate. So I grew up this way, and then eventually I got older and I became much more like, this is messed up. None of it makes sense. I'm done with it. I'm an atheist. This is stupid. And then I was like 18, I was talking to a guy, and instead of being like, shut up, you're dumb, I'm smarter than you, he made a point, and I went, that's a good point. And I think this is a reason why I am successful. Because for my entire life, there have been moments where I've been really sure of myself and been wrong, but I typically have a tendency towards willing to entertain someone else's opinions if they make a good point. I want to hear what they say. I want to assess it. An example is, I was much more pro-cop. Michael Malice made an argument. I said, I agree with you. Now I'm much less pro-cop. I'm still more pro-cop than Michael Malice is, but I lean towards maybe the police are a problem in a lot of ways. Not every cop. You know, I think there's an important job that police do. Gun control. I used to be like, there's probably gun control we can enact. And then someone laid out the arguments. I was like, I see exactly what you're saying. That's a good point. I didn't consider that. Now I'm two-way purist. Here we go. These young people, the millennial generation, they know, they don't care, they know, and they're wrong. And when they're wrong, instead of coming out and being like, I made a terrible mistake, they go, everyone else should suffer the same fate, so we're all in this boat because misery loves company. That's where we're heading. Here we go. People need to understand that humans are meant to breed and create more humans. People who don't want kids are wasting that privilege away. Olivia also clapped back at the number of men who weighed in on her decision, including a guy who told her that humans are meant to breed. I mean, that's kind of dumb. Humans do procreate. It is a function of humanity to reproduce and create, expand life and all of that stuff. My political position is that this young woman is probably wrong, but she is an adult who can make decisions for herself. If she finds a doctor who wants to perform the procedure, well, that's her choice. And if in a few years she comes to regret that choice, well, that's her own fault. You're not going to see me crying about it. And if she does cry about it, I'll just say, remember that time I told you were probably wrong? But I respect your autonomy as a legal human adult. I'm not going to interfere. But my other point here is you don't get to just tell a doctor they have to do it. Why? I love the entitlement of them being like, why won't the doctor do as they're told? I can tell you I'm definitely not getting an IUD. That's for damn sure, she said. Also, I am literally like celibate. Like no one wants to F me. All I do is stay home and do homework and watch Twitch. So it's not like I'm really getting laid. That's another issue here. I don't understand why, if that's the case, you need this procedure, tubal ligation. Now, again, I'll point out Daily Mail's once had tubal litigation, copy editor, guys. And I read it. That's my fault. So if you're not engaging in intercourse, why do you need sterilization? I just think that's weird. I mean, you're still going to have your periods and all of that stuff. So what? She says, I just kind of went in for a checkup and asked because I don't want kids. When do I start effing? I don't want to be at risk, Olivia added that her future partner will have to get a vasectomy, which men seem more likely to get approved for at a young age because it's reversible. I guess we'll just cross that bridge when we get there. Whatever boo I end up with, I guess he will just have to get a vasectomy because apparently you can get one with a snap of a finger because they're reversible. Bada bing, bada boom. But yeah, until then, we're just going to remain celibate, I guess. Young people ain't hooking up. So I'll end with this thought. It's very, very important. Remember that Abe Simpson from The Simpsons meme where he's talking to his son? It's like a flashback. Homer's young. And he's like, I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. And now what it is scary to me. And it'll happen to you too. And Homer's like, no way, man. And then it does. He wants to go to Hullabalooza, which is basically like Lollapalooza. And he's trying to be hip or whatever. I don't know if that's the same episode, but, similar ideas. Yeah, that's not going to happen to us. Millennials, it's not going to happen to us. It'll happen in some fashion, but not in the same way. Here's what I mean. Millennials aren't having kids. Gen Z is not having kids, which means there will not be a replacement generation. If you're a marketer, you want to throw a rock concert to advertise cars, the Nissan Tour or whatever, the Honda Civic Tour. So Honda Civic goes to promoters and says, we want people to buy our cars, so we want to sponsor a music event. Who should we book? The promoters say the newer music among younger people reaches 100 million young people. Older music targeting millennials will reach 200 million people. And that's because, here's the fascinating thing. The reason why the younger generation music takes over and the old people aren't with it anymore is because there are more young people. So promoters say there's X million boomers and Y million millennials. More millennials, more money to make, market to them. Now, when millennials age out, that is, retirement age and leave the key demographic, they will hold a disproportionate amount of wealth relative to Gen Z and those younger than us, because it's happening now with boomers and it's only getting worse. But because there's not going to be a large Gen Alpha relative to millennials and Gen Z will be a large market share. Therefore, businesses will say there is more money to be made marketing to this group than that group. It will happen in some form. There will be young music. There will be rock concerts for young people, but they will not get the bulk of financing. And so, millennials, what are we already seeing? Kate Bush, Deal with the Devil, or whatever the song is called, it's number one. It's like 17, like some absurd amount of time because of Stranger Things. I was watching Star Trek Into the Beyond or whatever, the Beyond, that movie. And in the movie, they played the Beastie Boys. And I'm like, who's watching this and being like, yeah, the Beastie Boys? I'm like, shouldn't they be using newer music? They're not. Guardians of the Galaxy. 2 soundtracks for 1 and 2, bringing back music from the 70s and 80s. Why? Because boomers have all the wealth. So they are playing music that makes the most money. Young people hear it and then say, I like this too. Older music is becoming cooler among younger people, not newer music. This will be a dramatic change in how things flow and function, and it will be very different. Boomers hold a lot of control and power, but they're aging out. A lot of boomers get mad at me for pointing this out, but guys, I think the boomers did amazing in some ways. They got a Star Trek The Next Generation. Fantastic. But they also raised many millennials who are entitled participation trophy losers. Y'all needed to give them some discipline and you didn't do it. But, people like you and I exist, the millennials watching and people like me, so our parents must have done something right. So I don't blame the entirety of the boomer generation. I blame many of those boomers and people like Bill Maher. Bill Maher is more likely to scold the woke people, but unfortunately he doesn't read the news. It's another problem. Anyway, young woman, there's a strong probability that you will come back and be like, I made a mistake. And that's why the doctor won't do it. You may be correct about how you view the world. Far be it from me to tell you how you feel. But the doctor doesn't want to take the risk of someone showing up and screaming in their face. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.